8:20 at KPEL, Acadiana's Morning News, joined on the phone with Fox News Radio correspondent Juliane Thompson to talk about the Trump primaries. It is another big Tuesday for the GOP candidates. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So what's the big get today? I know a few weeks ago it was Michigan, that a couple weeks before that, it all gets confusing. It was
now.
like Texas and Florida on the same one. What are we looking at today? Can you give us a little bit of a preview, Juliane?
Sure. I mean, Wisconsin is an extremely pivotal state in this election cycle, especially in the current political climate. It's an important swing state. It's important to remember that no Republican for the past 50 years has won the GOP primary without winning Wisconsin. And basically, on the Republican side, the way that the delegates are apportioned, it's for all intents and purposes a winner-take-all state. There's 42 delegates. 24 of those are allocated based on congressional district votes, and the 18 remaining at-large delegates are awarded to the candidate that has won the statewide majority. So it is a state that I believe is going to determine whether or not Donald Trump looks to be our nominee or whether we're going to go to a contested convention. And if I were to call it right now, I would say that Ted Cruz is going to win tonight, and we are going to be going into a contested convention in July.
Is this something that anyone, I know how these political teams work, and you kind of come together every couple years. You do the whole campaign, go on the trail on the road. Is there anyone who could have even guessed this was going to happen back when planning for this first started?
No, I really don't believe so. I mean, like I said, it's a completely different political climate. It's a bizarre election. Everybody has called it wrong from day one, including myself. Back in August, I said Donald Trump won't last the next 30 days, and he's the front runner. So it's been a very difficult to call election. And, for all of the talk that we hear about this being based on anger, yes, people are angry because they're tired of the campaign bait and switch, and they're tired of America being viewed as weak in the world, and they don't see Republicans having shown any more strength when it comes to negotiating and when it comes to debating the White House on the issues and foreign policy. They're just as angry at the Republicans as they are the Democrats. And so the political climate is very volatile, and yes, they are feeling anger, but it is not anger without a cause. And I think that the RNC is making a big mistake by not realizing that. And I still think that people inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C., they still don't get it. They don't understand why this election has turned out the way that it has. They are not hearing the people. And I mean, if you've got talk in D.C., a backroom talk of the powers that be talking about getting rid of Rule 40, which I'm sure, as you remember, was put into play back in 2012 to try to keep Ron Paul out of the process. And that's where you have to have an 8-state majority as well as the 1,237 delegates. Now it's coming back to bite them, because right now the only person that has that 8-state majority and meets that threshold is Donald Trump. And Ted Cruz will meet it. He's only one state away. But with all this backroom talk about getting rid of Rule 40 and perhaps running a third person at the convention that didn't run for president, that would not go over well with the American people.
Absolutely not. Well, I think that the average person, myself included, I feel like this whole process has been a long interview. We've seen the ups and downs. We've seen how they handled the other candidates when there was, 24 on stage, or it seemed like 36 or 49 on stage. We've seen how they handled that, so it's all been that way. I totally agree with what you say about the anger thing, because I think just the same way people are angry on the same, in the same breath, I think they're inspired by someone who is not afraid to say what they think. Does it offend people? Absolutely. Has it been criticized? Absolutely. But I feel like that was sort of the luster of Chris Christie before this whole thing happened. And if Trump wouldn't have happened, Chris Christie might be in the spot he is.
I think people are so tired of being held captive by the speech police. I think they are so sick and tired of political correctness when you have all of these college campuses around the country that, I'm in Atlanta. Here we have Emory University, where some
freaking out
students freaking out over someone writing Donald Trump 2016 in chalk, to the point that the college president had to come out with a statement, a ridiculous statement, and students are requesting therapy for having had to deal with that chalking.
Wow.
And when I'm not kidding, we are in a situation right now in this country where political correctness has made us crazy. And I honestly think that people are to the point where they might not agree with a lot of what Donald Trump has to say, but they're actually enjoying being offended because they haven't had it for so long. That people haven't been able to express their opinions for so long for fear of being attacked and being framed as this or as that, just because they had an opinion on something. And I think that Donald Trump has broken through that. And even then, and total disclaimer, he's not my candidate. I support Ted Cruz, but I give Donald Trump credit and kudos for breaking us out of that speech prison. And I think that, I think the American people were ready for it, and they're just tired of that.
Well, Juliane Thompson, thoughts on the Trump primary? We'll be covering it all night tonight and have all the latest for you for tomorrow's edition of Acadiana's Morning News. We appreciate you joining us, Juliette. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
8:27, Bernie has news, weather, and traffic in 1 minute.